On a parched afternoon in a desolate stretch of land, Corbin Thorne, a man living alone on a remote farm, happened upon a young woman collapsed by the fence near his well. She was unusually tall, dressed in Apache buckskin, her hair matted with blood and dust, her lips chalk white from dehydration. When she looked at Corbin, there was neither plea nor gratitude in her eyes, only sharp caution and clear awareness, as if she were measuring the man standing before her. Without questions or hesitation, Corbin quietly drew water and offered it to her. She drank 3 times in a row, slowly but with fierce determination, like someone clawing life back from the grip of death. When her thirst was eased, she rose to her feet, tall and silent, and stared at Corbin for a long moment, fixing his face in her memory. Without a word of thanks or explanation, she turned away, walked into the sun-scorched hills, and vanished. Corbin stood there watching her go, believing it had been nothing more than a brief encounter, a small act of kindness that would soon fade into forgetfulness. He had no idea that this simple moment, a ladle of water given to a stranger, had unwittingly set in motion a chain of events that would change his life forever. After the Apache girl left, Corbin Thorne tried to convince himself that it was over. In this land, strangers appeared and vanished all the time. It was nothing unusual. He returned to his daily routine, feeding the horses, checking the rotting fence, fixing the old hinge that squeaked with every movement. Everything was familiar. Everything was as quiet as it had always been. Yet in Corbin's mind, the image of the girl refused to fade. He remembered her eyes not fearful, not grateful, but cold and alert, as if she had seen something in him beyond a solitary rancher. The thought unsettled him, though he couldn't say why. He told himself he had done the right thing, given her water, then let her go. No debts, no ties. When night fell, the farm's usual stillness began to feel strange. The horses in the stable grew restless, pawing at the ground, letting out short, wary whinnies. The wind picked up, carrying vague, indistinct sounds from the distant hills. Corbin lay awake on his narrow bed, staring at the wooden ceiling, keenly aware that something in the air had shifted, even if he couldn't name it. He believed that when the sun rose, everything would return to normal. But deep down, Corbin knew that the girl's silent disappearance was not an ending, it was the beginning of something quietly drawing closer. As dawn broke, Corbin stepped out of the wooden cabin with the fragile hope that the uneasy night was behind him. In an instant, that hope collapsed. On the hillsides surrounding the valley, dark figures on horseback stood motionless, like stone statues. At first, there were only a few vague silhouettes, then 10, 20, and finally more than he could count. They were everywhere, on the northern ridge, along the eastern slopes, lining the dry creek bed to the west. Hundreds of Apache warriors had encircled Corbin's farm in absolute silence. There were no war cries, no drums, no arrows in flight, only the early sunlight glinting off spears and rifles, and countless cold eyes tracking his every smallest movement. Instinct drove Corbin's hand toward the rifle leaning by the door, but he stopped himself. One man with a single gun stood no chance against such overwhelming force. In the corral, the horses pressed tightly against the fence, the sharp scent of fear thick in the air. Corbin walked slowly into the yard, letting his arms hang loose at his sides, making it clear he had no intention of resisting. He understood this was not an attack. If they had wanted him dead, he would not have lived to see the sunrise. This encirclement was not meant to strike. It was a heavy, unmistakable message. From this moment on, every action he took was being watched. From within the silent ring, a single rider broke away from the ranks on the northern hillside and slowly descended into the valley. He was an older man, calm in his bearing, his face marked by time and authority. He stopped at a safe distance and signaled for Corbin to remain where he was. Corbin recognized her instantly. It was the Apache girl from the day before, but she was transformed. Her hair was neatly braided, her clothing clean, a finely crafted necklace resting at her throat. She sat straight-backed on her horse, tall and striking among the surrounding warriors. Her eyes were as sharp as ever, but the weakness of someone on the brink of collapse was gone. She reined in her horse in front of Corbin and, for the first time, spoke her English, hesitant but clear. She referred to what he had done, giving her water. It was not a thank you, but a confirmation. Through her short, measured words, Corbin grasped the truth. The older man was her father, the chief of the Apache. The girl explained that she had been undergoing a brutal survival trial meant to prove her strength and maturity. During the journey, she was wounded, lost her way, and nearly died of thirst. The ladle of water Corbin had given her the day before was not a small, passing kindness. It was the act that had saved the life of the daughter of the man commanding the 300 warriors now surrounding him. After the girl's identity was revealed, Corbin understood that the encirclement around his farm was not an immediate threat, but a prolonged test. For days on end, Apache warriors remained on the surrounding hillsides, silent and unmoving, like part of the landscape itself. They did not advance, they did not loot, and they did not leave. They watched. Corbin went on with his daily life under hundreds of unseen eyes. Every time he drew water from the well, repaired the fence, fed the horses, or stepped out of the wooden cabin, it was all being observed. At night, the flicker of Apache campfires on the ridges reminded him that he had never truly been alone. He understood what they were waiting for. A mistake. Would he flee? Would he ride off to warn soldiers or white militias? Would he try to profit from the life of the girl he had saved? The silence pressed down on him more heavily than any spoken threat ever could. On the fourth day, a warrior quietly left a bundle of dried meat and a canteen of water at Corbin's door. No message, no explanation. It was both an acknowledgement and a reminder that the test was not yet over. Corbin ate the food in silence, knowing that with each passing day, his fate was still being weighed balanced between the Apache tribe's fierce instincts and their code of honor. On the sixth day, the silence taut as a drawn wire was torn apart by gunfire echoing from the distance. The sound did not belong to the Apache. It was the familiar crack of white gunmen hunting their prey. From the eastern road, a group of mounted militia appeared, rifles at the ready, eyes burning with rage and bloodlust. They believed an Apache war party had massacred nearby settlements and had followed the trail all the way to Corbin's valley. Their arrival thrust Corbin into mortal danger. If he pointed out the Apache's position, a massacre would follow. But if the militia discovered that the Apache had only just withdrawn from his land, Corbin could be branded a collaborator and shot on the spot. Sensing the threat, the Apache girl warned Corbin at once. She ordered the warriors to withdraw into the mountains before the white men reached the farm. In moments, the ring of 300 warriors dissolved, leaving Corbin standing alone in the yard, facing the approaching riders with their guns drawn. From that instant, Corbin knew he was no longer a bystander in this conflict. Every choice ahead would lead either to bloodshed or to honor. What do you think Corbin should do in this situation? Who should he choose to protect? Leave a comment and share your perspective. When the militia reined in their horses before the farm, Corbin stood upright in the middle of the yard, his hands clearly visible, carrying no weapon. Suspicious eyes swept over him, over the wooden cabin, over the surrounding hills where the Apache had only just withdrawn. The gunmen fired questions at him one after another, probing every answer, searching for any sign that Corbin was hiding something. Corbin knew that outright lies would never fool them, but telling the whole truth would ignite a massacre. He chose the most dangerous path, telling just enough. He admitted that he had seen signs of the Apache, but insisted they had already left and had shown no aggression. He neither vilified nor accused anyone, only emphasized that during their presence here, not a single drop of blood had been spilled. Corbin's calm unsettled the militia. When he revealed that 300 Apache warriors had once surrounded the valley without launching an attack, the gunmen realized they were facing a force far beyond anything they could confront. The hunger for revenge quickly gave way to a very real fear. In the end, the militia had no choice but to withdraw. Corbin stood silently watching them ride away, knowing that his decision to avoid provocation, betrayal, and bloodshed had prevented a war that could have claimed countless innocent lives. When the white gunmen withdrew from the valley, the familiar silence settled over the land once more. From the hillsides, figures gradually emerged. The Apache girl appeared first, followed by her father and a group of elite warriors. They descended into the valley slowly, without haste, as if everything had already been decided. The girl stopped in front of Corbin and confirmed what they needed to know. He had not pointed fingers, not betrayed them, and not tried to profit from the tribe's presence. What he told the militia was enough to prevent bloodshed, but not enough to harm the Apache. That was exactly what they had been waiting to see for 6 long days. The Apache chief stepped forward, his weathered, sharp eyes studying Corbin one last time. After a brief statement in his native tongue, the girl translated, the trial was over, and Corbin had passed. He was recognized as a man of honor, something rare in a world where the tribe had witnessed far too much betrayal. As a final mark, the chief presented Corbin with a necklace made of leather and beads. It was not merely a gift, but a symbol of protection. From that moment on, Corbin was no longer an outsider. He was formally acknowledged by the Apache tribe and placed under their protection. The Apache necklace granted Corbin a protection few white men would ever receive, but it also placed him in a new and dangerous position. To the Apache, it was a mark of honor and trust. To other white settlers, it would be proof of betrayal. Corbin understood that if the ornament were ever seen, he could become a target of people who shared his own skin color. The Apache chief did not hide the truth. The tribe's protection meant Corbin had to abandon the idea of neutrality. He could not be sheltered by the Apache while still expecting sympathy from militias or nearby settlements. This choice allowed no retreat and offered no absolute safety. Corbin looked at the necklace in his hands, as one would face an oath. It was not merely beads and leather, but a clear boundary between two worlds locked in hostility. From the moment he put it on, he accepted that he might be hunted, isolated, even killed simply for choosing to live by his conscience rather than by the will of the crowd. The price of that choice was not gold or land, but the loss of trust from his own side in order to hold on to what Corbin valued above all else: honor, life, and the refusal to become complicit in violence. After everything, the valley returned to its familiar quiet. There were no warriors on the hillsides, no pounding hooves, no distant gunfire. Corbin resumed his solitary life, but he was no longer the same man. The Apache necklace lay plainly against his chest, a constant reminder of a choice that could never be undone. The white settlers who came back to the valley no longer looked at him the way they once had. They were wary, suspicious, some even seeing him as a traitor. Corbin accepted it. He did not seek praise or the title of a hero. What he chose was a life not built on fear or hatred. Each day, Corbin still drew water from the well, watered his horses, and tended his land. When travelers passed by Apache or white alike, he was always ready to offer them a ladle of water if they were thirsty. To him, the act was neither a symbol nor a statement, but simply the bare minimum of how a decent human being should live. Corbin understood that peace in this land was more fragile than anything else. But he also knew that sometimes, the greatest courage does not lie in taking up a gun and fighting, but in daring to refuse violence and live honestly with one's choices. That kind of honor might never become legend, but it was enough for him to live fully and without regret.